And we're going to open up that sales data. So hopefully you have that downloaded as well if you want to follow along. The format of the sales data was a CSV format file, which stands for comma separated values. If you just open it up in your text editor, you'll see the file's like very messy. All the numbers are there with commas separating them. That's a particular file format. If you have things in like .xls format, you can just click to import a file from Excel. Otherwise, I'm just going to go to File, Open, and I'm going to find that file on my desktop where I had it saved as sales.csv. And I'm going to go ahead and click Open. And you'll notice it's pulled in the data set now. And I can shift this tab around in the bottom right here to kind of look at the spreadsheet view of the data set. You'll notice this isn't the most convenient way to try to look at the data, but it is there. We can see it's residing in Tableau here. This other tab, shrink that down and you can get a bigger view here. If you have multiple data sets and you need to link them together, okay, there is a way to do that in Tableau by dragging the data sets over and joining them. But that's a little bit outside the scope of what we're going to get into for the project. I would say any sort of combining of data that you need to do for the project is most easily done in Excel. Just copy the columns, link them up. Maybe I have a data set on countries' GDP. I have another data set of the same countries and their unemployment. I want to link them together. Easiest way to do that is to use the common column for both of the data sets. In this example would be the country, right? That would be the same in both data sets. And then I could just import all of the same columns onto the same sheet. Any questions about importing the data here? Okay. So there's the data. It's in sheet one. So there's the couple different tabs down here. In fact, let me direct your attention to these. Right now, we're on the data source tab where we can look at the data. If you wanted to add columns or clean up columns or change some properties of the columns of the data, you could do that here. What we're going to do, though, is start building data visualizations. So I'm going to click on sheet one, and I'm going to just start a new worksheet for the visualizations. In fact, if you hover over these options down here, you can see this little +1 option. Actually, it's not going to give me, it's not going to tell me. That's okay. But this little plus option allows me to generate new worksheets. Oh, there it goes. I can also create a dashboard by combining worksheets into a dynamic visualization. I'll show you that a little bit later as well. So I'm going to click on the new sheet. Okay, and this is pretty much the main view where you're going to be doing most of your work. Okay, now you'll notice in the far left side of the screen here, okay, we have two tabs that we can access. We have the data tab that we are currently on. There's also this analytics tab, which I'll come back to in a minute. But you'll notice Tableau automatically has taken all of the variables in the data set and it's divided them into two different classes. Does anybody notice how they've divided these variables? Well, it's divided up into those two groups.
Like time and what?
So we talked about different types of variables, different types of data we could have.
Quality.
Good. That's what I'm getting at. So how has Tableau divided these things up here? Like everything in the blue box is what? Good. That's right. Very good. Okay, and everything in the green box, everyone see there's a little number sign next to it. And it's telling me it's a numeric variable. If you see ABC next to it, it's treating it as a categorical variable. Now, you might remember from our discussion last class, we had one variable up there that was really categorical, but it was coded numerically. Anyone remember which one that was? It's categorical, but it was coded numerically. It was kind of that one that was in the gray area last time.
Discrete?
It was a discrete one, but you don't remember which variable it was from the data set. It was the promo variable. Okay, promo, this was our binary variable. It was 0 or 1. Did we run a promotion on that day or did we not? Okay. Right now, it's treating promo like a numeric variable. We may not want it to do that. There are certain things you can do with numeric variables that you can't do with categorical variables and vice versa. Okay, so there is a way you can transform a numeric variable into a categorical variable and vice versa. But when you go backwards, as we saw the first day, you maybe lose some information in doing that. So first thing I want us to do here is just build a basic histogram plot. And the way we're going to do this is I'm going to essentially click and drag the variables over to the right towards the top where it says rows and columns. Okay. Typically, if you drag a variable into the columns, what it does is it plots the variable on the x-axis. If I was to take that same variable, sales, and drag it into the rows, then it plots the sales on the y-axis. Everybody okay with that? You drag it into the columns. It plots it on the x-axis. You drag it into the rows. It plots it on the y-axis. And the plot is not very interesting here. Not a very interesting plot. Does anybody see why it's not an interesting plot? I plotted the sales variable. We should have 365 days of sales, but it's only giving me one bar here. Does anybody see why, what it's doing to the sales? It's summing them. You look at the little green bubble, everyone see it says sum in front of sales there. What that means is when I drug the variable over, Tableau aggregated it in a very particular way. Aggregation is a way of adding something up or basically combining things into a single piece of information. So you can aggregate things by taking the sum. You can aggregate things, for example, by taking the average of them or the median, right? Some metrics we talked about last time. You could aggregate data by taking the maximum value or the minimum value of the data. Okay, they chose the sum aggregation here. If you click on the analysis tab up top, or you click on this little down arrow on the green bubble, it will give you some options of potentially how you could change the measure. Right now it's aggregated as the sum. Maybe I want to know the average sales across the whole data set, for example. So if I click on average, still I only have one bar because it's taking all 365 days and it's giving us an average. And if you move your cursor on top of the diagram here, it also shows you that value. Right, so it is an interactive plot here. You can manipulate some things on that plot. But again, probably not exactly the plot we were looking for here. Now, there is this analysis tab in the top of the screen here. And if you click on that, it will give you this option to disaggregate measures. Right, by default, that aggregate measures checkbox is clicked. If you uncheck it, it will disaggregate the measures. And now what can we see here? Well, these are all different sales on each of the different 365 days that are plotted. Okay, now this again is not a great plot. Okay, I only have one variable in the plot, agreed? Just a single variable sales. Okay, and there were some things we could do if we just had a single variable that we wanted to plot, whether it was plotted in the rows or in the columns. Okay, I could plot it as the X variable, or the Y variable. And you'll notice in the right side of the screen, there is this pretty cool show me box here, which makes, I think, life very, very easy. And for any given orientation of variables in the rows and columns, you'll start to see certain visualizations will basically not become faded anymore. Everyone see there's like a bunch of the diagrams are whited out. Right now, it's got the bar diagram selected here. And there's the bar diagram. But the other diagram we could plot right now is this one. Everyone see that? It's a bunch of diagrams that we can't plot with the way we have the data oriented, but there's some that we can. For example, if I go ahead and click on this one, okay, it gives us that familiar box and whisker plot. So now I'm looking at the distribution of sales. Everybody remember we looked at this plot last time? Okay. And we can see here, right, if I hover over the box and whisker plot, it shows me where the value of the upper whisker is, 70,135. That is right here. Okay. It's also telling me where the lower whisker is, all the way at the bottom there. And it's giving me the upper and lower hinges of the box, which specify the quartiles. It gives me the median right in the middle of the box. And we can also see what up top here. What's that observation right there? That's a what? Yeah, outlier observations, right? Very visible this way. Okay. So notice I can click on that observation. It just highlights that one. It kind of takes the other ones away. I can sort of focus on that a little bit more here. But I only have this one variable. Okay. What I might be interested in, for example, is how are sales distributed across the different days of the week? Which days of the week are my high sales days? Which days of the week are my low sales days? If I wanted to answer that question, then what other variable needs to come into play? What do you think? So right now we're looking at all of the sales for the whole year, but I want to know, how does the sales change by day of the week? So what are the variables am I going to need to pull in here?
Sunday through Saturday.
Okay, so which variable is that contained in?
Day.
It's the day variable. Good. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to grab the day variable and I'm going to put it in the columns so that it puts the days on the x-axis. Are you okay with that? Put the days on the x-axis here. Now it's got all the days of the week, Sunday through Saturday. And I can get a better idea of how the sales are fluctuating on these days. Okay. For example, we can see Saturday actually tends to be lower sales days on average. The median for Saturday is the lowest median compared to all the groups, right? The middle of the box plot on Saturday is the lowest. That being said, Saturday has one day where we did sell 72,162 units, okay, which is actually the highest value in the data set. All right, which, you know, we wouldn't have seen if we wouldn't have seen that happen if we didn't break this down in this particular way. Okay, so here is a visualization where we have one categorical variable on the x-axis. We have one numeric variable on the y-axis. If you don't like this orientation, then you can switch where these variables are going. Okay, there it is, same information, but presented horizontally. And as I mentioned, there's a little bit of, you know, aesthetics that you want to think about here. On the Show Me tab, you can move around if you want to, you know, see what's going on there. But I personally like them better plotted vertically here in this particular way. Okay, all in the same diagram. if you were to put the day variable and the sales variable in the same row, okay, then it creates separate plots for each day. And you can sort of see that there's maybe some scaling and aesthetics left to desire. There's ways we can zoom in and blow up the plot. I'll talk about that in a moment here. Yeah, if you hold Control Shift and you hit B, you can blow that. You can zoom in on the plots. If you hold Control and hit B, then you'll zoom out. But I think on the Mac, it's a little different. So just sit tight with that. And I'll give you some instructions there. But is everybody comfortable that we've generated here, not just a plot of one variable, but we have a plot of two variables against each other. And we can see how this categorical variable, the day of the week, is related to this numeric variable, the quantity of sales. Any questions about that? Okay. Maybe I want to keep this as one of my visualizations. So I can leave this here. If we want to edit the title, we can do that too. Box plots of sales by day of week. And give it a little bit of cleaning up if we need to there. Again, if I want to zoom in, Control Shift B lets me do that. Yeah, I get a little bit better scaling of the plot here. Okay, but there's our basic box and whisker plot. Let's go ahead and any questions about this one before I generate another one? Okay, so like it's fairly easy to use once you get the data in there. It's a little bit of playing around with, should I orient things in rows or columns, and which combination of things do I want to put together? But let's suppose I want to understand the distribution of sales. Okay, let's drop sales in the columns again. All right, now, is there any sort of visualization that's possible on the right that looks like it might help us understand the distribution of a variable? Like I could put this table in there, but this table's not really informative. So I'm going to go back. Everyone see this table option is feasible for us? And it's not, doesn't really tell us too much, just the one value by itself there. Everyone see the histogram as viable option? And you drag just one variable in there, okay, and you have the sum of it. It'll allow us to click on that. And notice once I clicked on the histogram, Tableau automatically arranged the data in the way that supports that particular visualization being made. There's basically a long way to build visualizations in Tableau where you have to have a lot of technical know-how for each type of graph. But I think the better way to do it is to take advantage of that Show Me tab on the right, mess around a little bit with the orientations of variables and see which visualizations you can build fairly quickly. And then we can start kind of going into each one and messing around with the features of each one. But here is our histogram of the sales variable. Okay. And we mentioned before that the promo variable, this was a discrete variable, but it was also really a categorical variable that was coded numerically. If I wanted to color the plot by a continuous variable, like let's suppose I wanted to look at this plot and I wanted to understand, in this plot, which observations corresponded to days where we ran the promotion and which observations corresponded to days where we didn't run the promotion. Okay. Then what I would want to do here is I would want to use another variable, the promo variable, and I'm going to drag it on top of this color palette. Everyone see there's a couple options there: color, size, label, detail, tooltip. Before I do this though, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to convert the promo variable into a categorical variable. You can see I just kind of drug it up there and it's still got the number in front of it, but the number's now blue. You see that? So now when Tableau manipulates that variable, it recognizes it as a categorical variable, which allows it to have certain properties that numeric data would not be able to have. And all I'm going to do now, this way for a moment, is I'm going to drag this promo variable on top of the color palette, and I'm just going to let go of it. And you'll notice two things happen. First, all of the observations that included days where we ran the promotion, they are showing up in orange in the histogram. And Tableau automatically put a key, right, a legend for the key that corresponds to the coloring of the diagram itself. Right now, if I wanted to ask this question, hey, does the promotion look like it's effective? Right, like if the promotion is effective, what should be true on days where we run the promotion? You think? If you run a promo, what should the effect on sales be?
It's a bump on sales.
Yeah, it should prop them up, right? Okay. Does that look like that the days we ran the promotion, that they tend to correspond to higher sales days than days we didn't? Like the days we didn't run the promotion, and we have a few days in the blue where like the sales were pretty high. But there's a lot of days where we didn't run the promotion where sales are really low, is that right? Okay, but where we ran the promotion, okay, the orange boxes, those if we just looked at the orange histogram, forget about the blue, just the orange, would you all agree that the center of the orange is probably over here? But the center of the blue is here, right? So I would suggest that this is maybe some evidence in support of the promotion doing what it's supposed to do. The days we ran the promotion involve higher sales values on average than days when we did not run the promotion. Any questions about this histogram? Broken down by the promo variable. Questions about that? Okay, now, does this really answer clearly here? Is the promotion effective? I think there's more analysis left to be desired, but this at least gets us to start thinking about this question. Okay, so we got a box and whisker plot. We got a histogram plot here of not just one variable, but we have two variables on the same histogram. We haven't looked at that before yet. But Tableau makes it pretty convenient to do that. Any questions about this one? Let's do a couple more here. What other types of plots have we talked about? Yeah, we've done pie charts. Anything else? Column chart. We actually started with that one here today, but it was a boring column chart, just one column. What else? And in fact, let me check this out. If we go back to sheet one, okay, you'll notice it's giving me a column chart option. Everyone see that? It gives me the column chart. So if I didn't like the box and whiskers and I wanted to go back to the column chart, I could do that. Okay, there's the column chart showing me, the total sales by day of the week there. Okay, but I can't really see the whole distribution that way. All right. But again, there's many options here, many different types of visualizations. You could use bubble charts, right? But again, this is maybe not the most informative chart here. You can sort of see how the sales are broken down by day there. So, it takes a little bit of kind of playing around, given that you have variables in the rows and columns oriented in a particular way. If there's a plot that you want to make, but it's grayed out, And like if I want to make a pie chart, notice I can't right now. I don't have any data in there. But it tells me what I need to make a pie chart. It says I need one or more blue variables, dimensions. That's what they call these categorical variables. And I need one or two measures, numeric variables. Okay, so let's suppose I wanted to understand how the sales was broken down by the promotion. Okay, so notice right away it gave me a bar chart. And is that really useful? What do you think? What is this telling us? What's this telling us? Anything useful?
You make $2 million when it was on
Okay, so two comments. First off, the quantity of sales is measured in units, not dollars, but I like the interpretation. It says here, looks like we sold 15 million when there was not a promotion and 2 million when there was. That doesn't really bode well for the promotion, does it? What's going on? I thought we just saw on the histogram a moment ago that the promotions were associated with higher sales days. Keep in mind, what's happening to the sales variable up there? It's doing what to it? In that green bubble, everyone see it? What's it doing to sales? It's adding them up, okay? Now, do we have equal numbers of days where we were running promos or not in the data set? Anyone remember? Was it like half the days we ran it, half the days we didn't? And what fraction of days did we run the promotion? Anybody remember?
40%.
Yeah, very good. It's about 10%. So I would suggest this isn't really the right plot to think about, is the promotion useful or not? Because of course, if I add up 90% of the days, the sales are going to be way bigger than if I'm only adding up 10% of the days. So one way we could think about changing that is, hey, instead of looking at the sum of the sales across those two categories, let's go ahead and look at the average between those two categories. Everyone see that? Now, if I look at the average sales, and would you agree on the days we ran the promotion, we do have higher average sales than on days we didn't. But the total number of sales should make sense as higher on the non-promotion days because there were 9 times as many non-promotion days relative to the number of promotion days. Okay. Now, I don't think this is the best plot here. So hopefully in your project, and we'll read the instructions in a moment, I don't want to see like 16 bar plots and that's it. Okay. I want to see like a pretty nice variety. The point of the project is to demonstrate your ability to A, conduct data analysis, and B, to leverage your hacking skills to kind of learn some of this software on your own. So let me go back here for a moment. I changed that sum to average. You know, by the way, if you do something you don't like it, you can use these back and forward arrows to just undo your work. Okay. But we added the sales variable. We then added the promo. And everyone see there's that pie chart option for us. It's viable. I'm gonna go ahead and click that. Boom. There's my pie chart. Yeah, but it kind of sucks. Right? Tiny. So if you want to make that bigger on a PC, Control-Shift-B for bigger. Blow that up. I think on a Mac, it's like, let me just look it up real quick. How many folks have Macs? Show of hands. Oh, man, everybody.
It's Command Shift B.
Is it Command Shift B? Okay, I was going to say usually if it's not Control, it's Command. But yeah, maybe Command Shift B makes it bigger. And if you let go of Shift and just do Command B, does it make it smaller?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So Control Shift B makes it bigger, or Command Shift B on a Mac. If you let go of Shift and you just do Control B or Command B, then it should make it smaller here. And the same functionality works with the other chart types as well. So if you don't like the scaling of it, blow it up. What else don't you really like about the pie chart here? Yeah, no labels. So we can fix that pretty easily here. If I grab the promo variable and I drag it on top of the label field, everyone see that label field there in the middle? And I let go of it, then it will give me labels for the pieces of the pie chart. Okay, now, again, we have to be a little careful. If you hover over a piece, right, I can click on the piece there and really emphasize it if I want to. I click on the other piece or exclude it. Okay, but what is it doing still with the sales? Everybody notice what's going on? Still totally, right? Which is making it look like the promo is only accounting for about 2 million in sales, where the non-promo's got like 16.5 million in sales. Okay, so if I want to fix that, I'm just going to switch this from sum to average. I'm going to do that in both pieces here to be consistent. And now we can see on days we ran a promo, the average sales was around 58,000. On days we did not run the promo, the average sales was about 8,000 units less, which I would argue, is maybe favorable towards the promotion here. Okay, and I think that's consistent with what we were seeing back in sheet 2 when we looked at our histogram diagram, that promotions were generally associated with the higher sales days. And when we look at the breakdown of the sales variable, and we look at the average sales on promotion days versus non-promotion days, we're also seeing the same thing. We might also be interested in breaking things down by like month, right? How does sales, depend on the month of the year? We could do the same thing. We'll get a lot more pieces of the pie. Again, if you move the Show Me tab here, okay, you can see it automatically creates a legend for me. Okay, now I want to jump back to sheet 2 for a moment. Actually, I'll keep sheet 2. I'll make a new one here. So we had sales in the columns. We made a histogram of the sales variable. Okay, and before we colored it by promo, which was a categorical binary variable, which gave us 2 possible colors. If instead I was curious, hey, is there any relationship with like the month of the year? Okay, then I could do the same thing, drag month over to the color palette, and you get some information there, which I think is more cluttered than useful here. Okay, you're like, it's a very colorful, pretty diagram, kind of, but I don't know how useful that is in seeing any particular patterns. But again, it does generate a very rich color palette and a legend for you there, which is convenient. But let me go back for a moment. Suppose I wanted to color this by the price variable, right? We said we expect when the price is high, that tends to drive sales down. But when the price is low, that might be associated with higher sales days. Price is a continuous variable, agreed? Dollars and cents can be any fraction of a dollar. So if I color this by a continuous variable, just do color by the average price. Okay, you'll notice because price is continuous, okay, it's not just giving me like 2 or 3 coordinated color palettes. It gives me a continuous scaled color palette. So if we had made the mistake beforehand, when we brought in the promo variable, if we kept the promo variable as numeric and we tried to color it by the promo variable, back here, let's take price out. If we color it by the promo after bringing promo down and making it green again, making it numeric. And again, it's summing promo here. But you can sort of see let's do this. And you can see that it's treating the promotion variable on a continuous scale, like it moves from 0 to 1, almost like it's a probability, 0.5. But we know that it's a binary variable because we looked at it in the data. So it was important for us to know that promo was really categorical and that we wanted to move it and create a categorical version of it so that when we brought it over here, we wound up not with this continuously scaled color palette, but rather we wanted to just have, two colors, one for one class, one for the other class of that categorical variable. All right, so we got our box plot, histogram, pie chart. Delete that one. What other plots did we talk about? Is that it?
Scatter plot.
Scatter plot, very good. And we did some scatter plots. What do scatter plots help us do? Good. Let's see how two variables are related to each other. Anybody remember the only strong relationship we identified last class? Which two variables it involved? I think we looked at the correlation matrix, right? We saw there was only one pair of variables that had a strong relationship. Anyone remember? I think it was one with sales. Yeah, ad spend was the other one. Good. So I'm going to basically put one variable on the x-axis. Ad spend is going up in the columns. Sales is going on the y-axis, so I put it in the rows. And this graph is not great because it looks like there's only that one data point. Just one data point there. And that's again because what did Tableau do with all of the data points? What's it doing to both sales and ad spend? Yeah, it's adding them up. Everybody see that? So if you go to analysis and you unclick the aggregate measures box, and then rather than adding them all up across the entire data set, now it shows me all the individual observations. And we checked the correlation before, but like even eyeballing this diagram, you should be able to see that there's definitely a very strong positive relationship here between those two variables. So again, we got two variables on this diagram. And I would say this is a fairly low level scatter plot. It's like the minimum amount of information you need to build a scatter plot. Now, we've seen a couple other visualization tools that we could use already. For example, we could change the color of how the data points are rendered by introducing other variables. We could also change the size and the shapes of the data points as well, if we wanted to introduce other variables. Before I do that, let me talk a little bit. I meant to do this earlier, but I would like to talk a little bit about this analytics tab. If you click on that, this will allow us to really leverage the computer to do a lot of dirty work in terms of some of the techniques we're going to talk about implementing in the next couple classes, specifically confidence intervals and regression lines or trend lines. So if I wanted to, for example, plot the average values of sales and ad spending on this plot, I can just drag this average line over to the right and tell it for this table, and I want the average values for both of those variables to show up. And then it plots the average values there. And I can hover over each of them to see what the average sales was, or the average ad spend. So there are some other things here that are going to be useful for us in a moment. We'll come back to that. If you grab this trend line, and you just kind of drag it over to the plot, you'll see this little menu of different trend line options pops up. I'm just going to use a linear trend line because we've been interested in linear relationships between things. And what that does is it shows me the best fitting line through the data. This is actually something we're going to spend quite a bit of time on the last couple lectures of the course. But this line is called a regression model. It is an equation that relates the y variable to the x variable. And here is the mathematical equation for that line based off of the data. What that equation will let us do is we can think about plugging in any value we want for the x-axis variable. And then the equation lets us predict what level of sales is implied by the data. And this works for plugging in values in the data we have for ad spending, but you could plug in any value you wanted for ad spending and think about, hey, if instead we had spent $1 million on ad spending, how much sales would we have gotten in that particular situation? If you're wondering what this R squared and P value means, we'll discuss all that stuff in due time. But what I would really like to do here is come back to the data tab, and I want to think about coloring the plot and using size and shape and labeling to make the plot look a little bit better. So let's suppose I'm curious about, again, how promotions are affecting sales, right? We suspected that it looked like the distribution of sales. We looked at the histogram and colored it by the promo variable, that the days we ran promotions tended to be higher sales days on average. We kind of confirmed that with this pie chart where we could see that when we ran promotions, sales were about 8,000 units higher on those days than when we didn't. So if I bring promo over here, and again, let me make it a categorical variable first. And let's go ahead and drag that on top of the color palette. And once we've done that, you'll notice Tableau automatically created a second trend line that separates out the two groups: days we ran promotions, days we didn't. For the sake of the analysis here, in fact, let's just take the trend lines away for the moment. But I'll put promo back in there. Okay, and we were thinking about answering this question, to what extent is the promotion effective, right? And we saw that the promotion did tend to be associated with days where the sales were higher. Is that right? Like I can see all of the orange colored days. They tend to be higher sales days. Would you agree? There are, of course, a couple exceptions, right? There's this guy up here. He's an exception. Okay. But it looks like on average, days we're running the promotion, they do have higher sales. But there's a little bit of a problem here. And I would argue there's something we have to kind of think about disentangling. And you'll notice while promotions do seem to be on higher sales days, they also tend to be on what? They are on higher sales days, but they're also on what? So we're trying to think about, is the promotion driving sales, right? Looks like yes, but we have to be careful. Okay, right? Correlation is not causality. And we're going to be a little careful about this. So we can see promotions are on high sales days, but what else is also high on the same days? Yeah, our ad spending is high, right? What does ad spending help us do? Yeah, it's also trying to help drive sales. So like now we're kind of in this weird place. Is it the promotion that's driving the sales? Or is it the ad spending that's driving the sales? Okay. Unfortunately, I can't really answer that question without a little bit more analysis. Okay. So the last week of the course, we're going to build statistical regression models, trend line models, if you will, that will allow us to control for multiple variables at the same time to kind of answer this question. If you wanted to look at the relationship between price and sales, let's do the following. Let's drag price over onto the size block. Okay. It's kind of subtle, but do folks see that? Stop changing. Okay. So it's kind of hard to see, but the sizes of the circles, they have changed. Okay, some are smaller on low price days. Some are bigger on high price days. In fact, let's undo that. Let's drag the ad spend variable over. Let's do that. Actually, let's drag impressions. Suppose I wanted to know how these different days were also related to social media impressions. Let's start there. Let's drag that on top of the size palette. And now we're getting a different scale of size for the impressions. We can see here like pretty low impression days, right? But over here, we got a very large impression day. So how many variables are we looking at the same time here? What do you think?
Four.
Yeah.
From more impressions, ad spend and sales.
Very good. So I would argue this is like a pretty high level visualization. There's 4 variables at once. We're able to see how all of them are interacting with each other in some way, shape, or form. Okay, now coloring. We saw coloring works well for both discrete and continuous variables. If it's continuous, it gives you a continuous color scale. If you make it discrete, it'll just give you, a predetermined discrete scale. Size is useful also for both discrete and continuous variables. Okay. With continuous, depending on the range of the values, the size may or may not be a useful visual tool. Okay, but the other thing that is very useful is manipulating the shape. Right now, the default shape is set to circle, and there's ways you can change that. But let's suppose I wanted to understand how the sales were fluctuating across the different days of the week. So let's grab day. I'm going to pull that onto the shape palette. And now we have all these different shapes, like 7 different shapes for the different days of the week. That looks like a really messed up PlayStation controller there. So if there was something systematic, like all the high sales days were on Saturdays or something, we would see a bunch of triangles up and to the right, but it's not very clear that there's any particular pattern by day of the week here. Okay, and we looked at the breakdown of sales by day of the week. There wasn't a tremendous difference, but we did recognize Saturday kind of had a slump relative to the other days on average. And that might be counterintuitive. Like this is video game sales. What do parents make their kids do on the weekends?
Go to church.
Yeah, go to church, maybe like go play outside, go play with your friends, like no screen time, get out. Maybe that was driving sales down on Saturdays. So, visualizations are there, not so much to answer questions, but to really help you ask the right questions. All right, how many variables do we have on this graph now?
5.
Yeah, we got 5 of them. So I'd say that's like a very high level visualization. Right, in the project instructions, I think I say something like I want each group member to make 4 visualizations. Okay, 4 per group member, that's 16 total. If one person though is including like 4 or 5 variables in the same visualization, then I'll give you credit for multiple visualizations for just one of them. Okay, so if you're including 2, 3, 4 variables, you're using the color palette, you're using the shape. This is a reasonable approach. If I wanted to know, what month sales were taking place, and this is not the best visualization here if I do this because it's going to start getting cluttered, but you can drag month over onto label, and it will label each of the points for you as well. Okay, so now, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different variables on the same visualization. It's again going to be up to you to kind of decide how much information is too much information to be including in the same plot. Right now it's definitely maybe looking a little over cluttered, so I'd probably back up a little bit here. I maybe think looking versus impressions makes a good amount of sense. But here we've generated 4. Would everyone agree these are 4 unique visualizations? A box plot, histogram, pie chart, scatter plot. Those are very different. Okay, that's what you should be shooting for. Okay, I don't want to see 4 different scatter plots for each one as just different colors and different combinations of variables. Right? I want to see 4 unique visualizations. So everybody agree? I've done that here today. We've seen how to do that. You could just kind of go through with your data and replicate what I've done here verbatim if need be. Before we wrap up, I do want to show you something pretty cool, and that is a dashboard. And right now, we've built these 4 different visualizations on sheets 1 through 4. I just clicked on this little plus create new dashboard. And the dashboard is a nice way to look at all of this information together and then to actually filter and link the visualizations in a way that makes them interactive. Okay, so I'm going to just kind of drag sheet 1 over, and sheet 2 over, and sheet 3 over, and sheet 4 over. A little bit for sheet 3 there. Okay, and now I have all this information in one place. Maybe sheet 3 I want to give a better title to. Call it breakdown of sales. Breakdown of sales by promo. Sheet 4. Sales versus ad spending by the promo variable. And impressions. Now, right now, I could click on each of these charts individually. Okay, and nothing happens on the other charts. Basically, the charts are individually static objects at this point. However, does everyone see there's this little filter icon next to each picture? If you hover, click on a picture, there's a little, looks like a funnel. So here's what I want you to do. If you click on this use as filter button, and I'm going to do that for all the visualizations, uses filter, uses filter, uses filter. Now, if I was to manipulate one visualization, like let's suppose I'm interested in promo days in the pie chart, right? So I click on the promo piece of the pie. Look at what has happened now to all of the other pictures. It's used the input of me clicking here to filter all of the other visualizations according to that criteria. Okay, so I could take a screenshot of this, right, and export this into a project. Wink, wink. Okay. And this gives me all the analysis in one place for what does the distribution of sales look like across the days for promo days? What's the histogram look like? What's the relationship between sales and ad spend look like on promo days? We get that all filtered in a very, very nice way. Okay, so now we've linked all these visualizations together through the data set, and we have an interactive dashboard. And the skill of building dashboards is extremely, extremely valuable in industry, whether or not you're going into tech or IT or healthcare, construction management. Being able to do this is a very, very critical skill in business. And Tableau is, in my opinion, one of the best softwares for generating visualizations. I mean, like, you saw me build this thing in a few minutes. It's very easy to do. You can imagine we can get into quite a bit more detail in terms of what other variables we want to include in any of these 4 visualizations. We can make more and import more visualizations into that dashboard and link them up to make them interactive. But hopefully this gives you a pretty basic rundown of what you're expected to do in the project. If you end up with something like this at the end, I think you've done a pretty successful project, in my opinion. Okay. Any questions at this point in terms of how I've used Tableau here? There's again going to be a lot of issues you're going to run into that I maybe didn't cover explicitly in class. I gave some issue with cleaning your data, importing it. I think like everything I did here was pretty frictionless today, but there's going to be a lot of hiccups that you're going to come across, and we're going to have class sessions to kind of, break out into your groups, and I can come around and help people troubleshoot certain things. Also, once you're done, it's a good idea to save your work here. So I'll just save it as Tableau dashboard example with sales. And I'll make that available to everybody in case they want to take that, mess around with it. Here's my outlier. What's that do? Yeah, it clicks on that Saturday. Here's the distribution on Saturdays. So yeah, pretty cool. Once you get that, that's set and ready to go. Not too bad there. Any other questions about that? Okay, so for the project, the visualization should be done here. I know we did a couple last time in Excel, but every single one we've done in Excel, we can do here, agreed? And this gives us a little bit more flexibility. It's a little bit easier, in my opinion, to do it here than in Excel. Okay. The statistical analysis otherwise, like mean, median, standard deviation, all that stuff, correlations, that can be done in Excel. That's fine. Okay. But the visualization should be done in Tableau. I would recommend getting together with your group. And once you've each built a good visualization, make a dashboard. And then as you go through your report, you can click on data points, you can click on certain things, and you can screenshot those, export them into your report, and use the dynamic dashboard to help tell your story. It's much easier than just using one picture, screenshotting it, exporting it, then changing the picture, screenshotting it, exporting it. Build this, save it. And then, if you're interested in like, hey, how do things look on this outlier Saturday? on days where we ran promotions, then you can start drilling down and you can start looking at things more specifically here for the report. Any other questions about this example? I don't know how much more class time I'm going to specifically devote to like going through Tableau and doing an example. I think if you could more or less follow the steps I've outlined today, you should be in good shape. Okay. If you get geographic data, there's really cool map visualizations. Like I had a group that had housing prices in San Diego in California, and they had the latitude and longitude of each home. So they were able to see in the Show Me tab, there was this option. It's not showing it. Oh yeah, right up here. See these map options? Okay, those might become viable if you have that type of geographic spatial data, and Tableau recognizes that when you import it. So even though I've only kind of covered these 4 basic visualizations that we've looked at multiple times, there may be other ones that you should, show me what you can do. If you see some new visualization, some cooler one that I didn't explicitly go through, but it's viable and it helps you tell your story, then use it. Don't hesitate to. Any questions otherwise before we take a look at the instructions? All right, awesome.
So